right. Hey, remember, Eli Skinner here, Simplify It, Fathom Realty, the team lead on the Eli Skinner team. You're getting all these videos on Hot Fire Agent training on YouTube. That's a secret portal. It's not so secret. It's all public, but we just don't tell anybody about it. Got it? Okay. I'm not a lawyer. Just been doing this a while. I happen to think pretty critically about things, so I wanted to explain these forms to you. We were working our way through. We just did lead-based paint, and now we're going to jump into the buyer's inspection response. Now, I am potentially going to pair this video with the seller inspection response so that we have a clearer picture. So this is the form that you use when you select on the purchase agreement, when you select the box here that says buyer reserves the right to have independent inspections, okay? Because then during this initial inspection period, inspection response is required if the buyer does not, blah, 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 blah. Anyway, we've been through all this. This is where we are going to send a response for a request for repairs or concessions. Now, I'm going to go through a lot of information about repairs versus concessions, why you might do one, what the risks are. But notice, this does not apply with an as-is addendum. Why? If you remember back from the other videos, as-is addendums, you reserve the right to inspect and terminate. With this one, which then this does apply, you reserve the right to inspect and negotiate. The seller does not have to be a part of the negotiations, meaning they may tell you to fly a kite, buy the house, or don't buy the house, but we're not fixing anything, we're not giving you concessions, you just wasted your inspection money, whatever they're going to tell you, okay? But this is when we mark number 2, this buyer reserves the right, and then all of this comes into play. So in this contract, if we mark number 2, then we're going to have 10 days to inspect and respond with negotiations if we want to negotiate at all. Any deemed necessary by a buyer, this means we can inspect everything, and then if we find something that needs further examination or testing, then we automatically get 5 more days. That's the way this would be written. So now I'm going to back it up, and let's jump into the buyer inspection response. Look at this form, all these lines. Now I'm gonna show you something interesting here. I'm just going to fill this up. Okay, so now obviously, if you look at my scroll bar here on the left, I have too many lines. Well, that's okay. Watch what happens. I'm gonna save that for a second. Okay. Now I'm going to preview it just so you can see what happened. Look, we filled it up, and then on that last line, it says it continued to addendum 1, and it automatically creates an addendum. Okay? So it's continuing with the conditions. So if you have too much, then you're going to have to be prepared this will automatically do it, and it'll sign. Some people, if they know they're going to get there, they're just going to do exactly what I did and say continued see addendum. Normally, I go ahead and fill it up and then let it bleed over, okay? But I just wanted to show you how that worked because we hadn't done that on anything else. So let's get back in here. Let's delete all this mess. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else. Nope, we're good. Okay. I'm going to save that. So let's start at the top. Buyer inspection response. Since the buyer is going to start everything, and this is our first inspection response. Now I'm going to point out right away that response and reply are 2 different things, and they are numbered differently. So you'll see how this works here in a second. I'll try to remember to come back to it, but the response says, here's what we want fixed. Or on the seller's side, response says, here's what we're going to fix. The reply is always your answer to what the other party said up here. So notice this is seller inspection reply. Buyer response 1. So this is clearly the seller's reply 1. And then the seller would fill out a form very similar, and it's going to say seller response. And what number will it be? Well, that'll be 1, because it is the first time the seller has responded. He replied the first time at the bottom of our inspection buyer 1, and then he's going to reply 1 and respond 1. Then when it comes back to the buyer again, the buyer is going to, at the bottom of the seller one, is going to say buyer down here. Buyer reply 1 is the first time we've addressed a seller's response. And then we're going to be up to buyer's response number 2 if we go back to the seller. So when buyer's response, seller's response, buyer's response. If you keep them separate, buyer's response 1, seller's response 1, buyer's response 2, seller's response 2. Then you go down here, you got seller's reply 1, and then the buyer's going to reply 1, and the seller's going to reply 2, and the buyer's going to reply 2. If you just think about them separately, you'll be okay. But sellers generally are going to match, reply 1, and then they're going to respond 1. And the buyers are going to be different. So when they respond 1, we're going to reply 1 as a buyer, because it's our first reply, remember, down here. Reply 1, but then we're going to create another response. If we didn't accept it, it's going to be a response 2. So they're numbered separately, reply and response, and they're numbered separately, buyer and seller. It does get a little confusing until you're used to it, so just be ready. Now you pop in the date that you're doing the paper. What date we sign doesn't matter as much. It matters more what date you're doing the paper, so you pop the date in. Property address, all this will be automatically filled in from your, deal that you've got cooking. And you've got 3 options here on the buyer inspection response. One is the buyer accepts the property provided the seller corrects the following conditions. Okay? Then the second one down here is going to be buyer is exercising additional time in order to receive and respond, blah, blah, blah. No seller's response is required. This is already in the purchase agreement because the initial inspection report revealed a condition that requires further examination or testing. Whose responsibility is it to find the problems with the house? It is the buyer's responsibility. Okay? So if it requires, we'll get to it. All right, here we go. Then there's an other category. This would be where you might put concessions because we're not correcting conditions. We're not exercising more time. We just want money, or we just want them to move this to there, right? We want the seller to stand on their head for 10 minutes. Like, whatever. This is other. So that's a rarely used box except for concessions. Other than that, I don't know what you'd use it for. But here we go. Buyer accepts the property provided seller corrects the following conditions. So do I need my first line of my writing to say seller to correct blah, 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 blah? Well, no. Why would I need that? Literally, you just redundantized. Is that a word? You just said it again. Buyer will take the property provided the seller corrects the following conditions. And then you just list. Why would you repeat seller to correct? 1, item 3.2, I might write all item numbers are correspond to the inspection report items. Okay. And then I would go 1. Or I would do this 1.4 roof. And then if it needs some explanation, I'm going to say repair all damaged. I don't know why I'm in all caps, but my finger hit it. Okay. Repair all damaged shingles. 3.6 leak under sink. Okay. Because sometimes, like under this roof category, there could have been 3 or 4 things. So you might want to go 1.4 roof, and then you just kind of say what it is. 7.2, 7.4. We're going to say garage. I'm just going to do this. Door from garage to house. Okay? Because maybe they said it was an interior door, not an exterior door like it should be. They all have it listed out in the report. He says what's wrong with it, right? So do I need to tell them how to fix it? Please switch to an exterior door. No, I don't need to do that. It says in the report, should be an exterior door. Or whatever, right? So your goal here is to keep it simple and keep it vague, in my opinion. That's the way I roll. I want it vague enough that I can come back and say, that's not good enough. But if I were to say repair all damaged shingles with, special, I don't even know. The problem is I know too much about roofs, but you guys and people watching aren't going to necessarily know a bunch about these repairs. So now all of a sudden you're gonna tell them with screws, new screws, and new granules. I mean, I don't know what it would be, but you start describing how to fix the problem. They're agreeing to fix it that way, and that might not be the right way. And then your client's going to go, hey, my shingles are leaking again. And you find out, well, screws aren't what we use to put on roofs, and we don't put new granules on shingles. We replace the whole shingle, right? So we may just leave it at that, because you'll see right here, buyer shall have the right to inspect and accept seller's repairs prior to closing. So rather than explain what not to do so much, you seeing what you should do, right? We're gonna say 9.4, seller to have HVAC specialist clean and service HVAC. Okay, just said that. Wrong answer. Who is responsible to have who's responsible to have these inspections? The buyer is. You can't put it back on the seller. Seller is not responsible. Now, if we have a problem, then they fix it, right? That's why you'll see what I'm writing up here. So, is there a problem with the HVAC or is there not? That's the question. The report may have said the unit is very dirty, the filter hasn't been changed, there's no record of recent service. The question is it working? I cannot reiterate that enough. As a listing agent, as a buying agent, is it working? That's all that matters. Now, not everybody's going to see it the same way, right? A seller is going to want to say exactly what I'm saying. Is it working? The buyer is going to want to say, yes, it's working, but it's old and it hasn't been cleaned and serviced recently. So, now we have, it's called deferred maintenance. Well, deferred maintenance is not a defect. That just means it isn't clean. I've got lots of deferred maintenance. Heck, my body has deferred maintenance because I don't exercise, right? So that's not a defect. A defect is defined in the purchase agreement. We've been there. We've talked about it. The short version is significantly and adversely affects the value of the home, safety of the occupants, or health of the occupants, and the and or the life expectancy of the premises, the expected life expectancy of the premises. So, a dirty furnace, yeah, might gosh, yes, it does affect the life expectancy if you never clean your furnace. But that's maintenance. That is not a defect in and of itself, okay? That's what we're looking for. So that one is not happening, okay? But so you're going to basically just identify the report. Here's what I'm saying. I am not an inspector. I am not a contractor, at least not in what we're doing here, right? I'm a real estate agent. So I'm also not a lawyer. So I am not going to jump into another professional realm to try to be specific and do all kinds of crazy words and look smart. I'm going to point to the professional, right? I'm going to say the professional said in item 1.4 that there's something wrong with the roof, so we need to repair the damaged shingles. The professional said item 3.6 there's a leak under the sink. Remember, correct the following conditions: leak under the sink, damaged shingles, door from garage to house, right? You might be able to add a little bit to that as, swap, changed. Gotta go back caps lock now. Changed to exterior door. And then, interesting thought, buyer to this buyer and seller to collaborate on style chosen. Okay? You can add that, right? I'm buying your house, and if you pick a dumb door that's shaped like a peacock, I might not be interested in that house anymore, and it was absolutely a waste of money and time for everybody. So there are times damaged shingles, with similar shingles to match. There you go, right? So the buyer has the right to accept the repairs. So if they chose a peacock, well, maybe we just don't accept the repairs. Sorry, guys, we're not taking a stupid door like that. But it's nice to add in here occasionally that buyer and seller to collaborate on style chosen. Because they're going to go, well, we're not letting you choose a $10,000 door for the garage. And you're going, I don't want to do that. I just want to make sure it's the right color or the right amount of windows or no windows, or it's got squares or circles or it's flat or whatever, right? You want to make sure. So you kind of got to negotiate back and forth on pricing and what you're trying to accomplish. But this would be a good inspection response, right? So now let's say you've gotten the report back, you're doing all these things, you're telling them what items you're going to fix. Now note, there is a radon response form that's separate, so that doesn't go here, but you're wanting to make sure that you send this document when you're done. So you don't send this document after the inspection and then go, oops, and then you send radon separate, and then oops, then you send a water test separate, then oops, no. Once this is sent, it's sent. So you're done. All right, so here's that's the general way that you operate up in this section. Now, what happens if you can't get to something? Well, I'm going to probably just let the seller know. Let's say you're going to a house with a septic, or you couldn't get in the attic because it was screwed shut, or there was no attic access, or you're trying to do a sewer line scope and you can't find where to get in. There's no clean out, or you're going to the septic and you can't find the septic tank lid to get in. Well, they were obligated to provide access to all parts of the property. The attic is included, The sewer lines included, the septic tanks included. So they haven't done their job. Just like if electricity's not on, that's a seller's job. If the water's not on, that's a seller's job. So then you're basically going back to them and saying, hey, we're going to extend our initial inspection response time to, and give yourself another week or another couple days for them to get the electricity on, dig up the lid for the septic tank, which we had somebody do here recently, for them to, you have to, most of the time the buyer's going to have to bring a plumber or a sewer scope company to pull a toilet if there's no clean out to get down in there. So it's going to cost a little bit extra, but you can negotiate through who's pulling the toilets and all that. Who cut an attic access. I've had people do that. Like, sorry, we're not buying the house unless we can inspect the attic. So tough cookies. So cut an attic access or we're not buying it. And then there you go, right? Like, that's what happens. So that's what you do in the event you can't get in somewhere. You don't send what you know, you just wait. Now, there are times when we're going to send an incomplete one, but most of the time, we're not going to send a formal response. We may send in a report with an email that's saying, hey, here's what we're thinking on these items, but before we can respond, we need to extend this because we couldn't get into the attic, couldn't get into the sewer, and couldn't find the septic lid, right? Whatever it is. But this is that first section that's predominantly going to be used. If you want to keep your life easy, you always just do this one. Now, that's not really the right answer, but this is the easy path. Easy path, the simple path, which I like simple. The normal path is to say, seller, just correct these issues. If they then want to come back with a concession amount of dollars, then great. But you didn't reserve the right to negotiate for concessions. You really reserve the right to negotiate for repairs. And you have to, by law, give them, or by contract at least, give them an opportunity to repair these defects. By asking for money down here, you didn't give them a chance to repair it, right? So I tend to do one of two things. I know this is a lot, but pay attention and listen over and over again. I tend to do an either or if my clients are willing to take a financial concession. Buyer to correct the following conditions, and I list them, or buyer to contribute $4,000 towards any of buyer's lender allowed purchasing expenses, and then I might even write seller may circle and initial which one they choose. Now we gave them a chance to fix them, or we gave them a chance to concede financially for them. They're not going to pick both. I don't even care which one they pick. I just need them to pick one at some point and do that one. Okay, so that's how we get around that. Sometimes giving them options right here is going to be helpful. It worked really well for us. And I have a seller come back. We'll give you the $4,000, and then they initial it, and then they sign it as accepted, and it's over. Okay? Again, I'm not a lawyer. I'm a normal guy, and this is the stuff normal people do. Hey, you got two options. Pick one. We'll roll with it. I gave here two options, here, and we'll roll with it. All right? So that's option one. Seller's going to correct the following conditions. Defects only need to go on here, not maintenance, not standard. Small things. Defects that significantly and adversely affect the value of the home, safety and health of the occupants, or life expectancy of the premises. Okay? This one is buyer exercising additional time. We talked about that. That we found something. Let's say we went to the attic and we noticed something that looks like mold growing all over the rafters. Okay. If we want to know about that, we get to go find out about that. We don't get to tell the seller, please have mold in attic tested and repair as recommended by a mold remediation company. No, that is not a defect until it's a defect. You can't put the onus of inspections onto the seller. You can try, but I, as a listing agent, am going to tell you to fly a kite. We're not inspecting our own property. We saw that the roof looks like it needs some love. Have a contractor inspect it and then fix it according to what he recommends. No. Buyer, have your own contractor evaluate it. That's a roofing guy. and come up with a proposal of repair. Period. There is nothing in the contracts that says a buyer can change and put the onus on the seller to do their own inspections. It just doesn't happen. So now it happens all the time because listing agents are dumb, buyer's agents are dumb, nobody knows what they're doing, but we're not that way. Spend the extra time, take your extra time. I will respond back to a buyer's agent when they say, have an HVAC company come evaluate the furnace because it's old and it's dirty. I respond back with, no, that's why you have the 5 additional days, because you found something that requires further examination or testing. You call your HVAC guy, have them come out and evaluate the system, just like you called the inspector, just like you called the septic company to evaluate the septic. You call the HVAC guy and have them inspect the furnace. Dirty is not a defect. Old is not a defect, in my opinion. Okay? So you can't pass the buck to the seller. So don't do it. Just click this box and hire an HVAC company to come evaluate. All right? Now, if you want to ask for concessions only or a price reduction, something like that, this is where you would do it. You click that one, and then you say, purchase price, in lieu of any repairs, purchase price to be X. In lieu of any repairs, seller to contribute $4,000 towards any of buyer's lender allowed purchasing expenses. That sort of thing, okay? Now, if you have an addendum that's popping up, or you have an exhibit, you could, or if you have something to write, you could add an addendum. I don't do this much because I'm going to show you something that really will help your life if you and your clients use Housemaster like they should, or like you should at least be recommending only Housemaster. And if you want to use someone else, like whatever, but they've done really good work for us in the past to make our lives easy. So these are the 3 sections. 1, all you do is list the repairs that you want done. If you need specific things done, be careful, but you need to write them because they're going to agree to it. If you need, if you want stainless steel, the refrigerator isn't working and it was supposed to be, or it was, then we want a new, replace with similar, thing. Replace the refrigerator with similar, or with, you could say exactly what you want it replaced with, model numbers. I mean, you can do all this research, okay? Or your client can. But another thing you can do up in here is do this. Replace the following conditions. All items on repair request list from Housemaster. Oh, you say, what is that, Eli? Well, let me show you. Access report. I'm in Housemaster. Log in my account. View. This was actually one we just did. View repair list. Okay, so I'm going to go to one that I haven't already done one on. Garo, I did it. Switchback, I did it. All right, I didn't do that one. So view. Generate repair list. And we get started, and then right here, you can look through all these pictures and say what you need to say. So we want to request repair, and we want to all defective. Actually, I leave it blank most of the time, right? It's clear what's wrong. Loose or disconnected tabs observed throughout the exterior of the roof covering, recommending further evaluation and repair as needed. Roof repairs have been. See, they always say this, recommended further evaluation. This is what that extra time is for. Roof repairs be newly installed. Yours could take a couple seasons to properly adhere, blah, 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 blah. So, you can either have your roofer come out, or you can just say request repair and hit next. Anyway, Slowly but surely, you're going to then end up with all this stuff. Okay, we've got gutter blocks with leaves. Okay, whatever. We'll take that as is. That's not a real defect. Splash, discharge. Okay, they could collect too close to the house. Okay, but we'll take that. That's normal. Blah, blah, blah. Deteriorated caulk seams of the chimneys are additionally to caulk. Is caulking a defect? I don't know. It's kind of a maintenance item, but then we get into, is painting the exterior wood maintenance, or is it, because one of the definitions is, if not corrected, this could lead to a shortening life expectancy of the premises. And yeah, if it's not corrected, it could, right? So you see how subjective this is. So I might request repair. Next. So I'm going to go through all these, and at the end, it's going to spit out up here. I can download a PDF, and then I will put it in my file. So now I've said all items on this, and I hit back, and then watch this. I'm going to go to one of my transactions. Find Gines. Here we go. In the documents, we dropped in the repair request list. So what it looks like, right? Showing all this roof stuff. And then has it's great pictures, big pictures, which is why one of the reasons I like Housemaster. And it says, here's the problems. Here's this picture, here's the problem. Here's this picture, here's the problem. This picture's, here's the problem. This picture's, here's the problem. This picture's, here's the problem. These pictures, here's the problem. These pictures, here's the problem. These pictures, okay? Now, in this chimney one, there's a chance that we should or could order the chimney company to come evaluate, but my clients decided not to, so I'm playing as best as I can, and here's all the problems, okay? So then I added this comment: inspection and repair to be done by professional chimney company, and any other recommended repair to be completed as well. All right? So I did give them a little bit of, hey, you guys need to do this, but I already know they've got to get a chimney company out there. So fix all these things, but you can't not fix other items that they find. So that's what I was kind of alluding to. But anyway, this exact thing, buyer's inspection response, look, all items on attached incorporated repair request list by Housemaster. That's what I'm talking about. Then I'd have them sign both. So I click here, you'll see that they even signed the repair request list. See, badunk. They both signed it, and we move on with our lives. Okay? So that's how I might do that. That's a really good, easy way. Again, I'm not getting caught in this playing contractor, playing lawyer world of trying to explain what a professional needs to explain and do. So I'm just going to say, repair the roof shingles. Repair the door that doesn't close all the way. Repair the chimney. Repair the whatever, right? These are the items I'm listing. So once you've gotten all of that handled, then, by the way, when you're getting additional time in order to do further examinations, you're going to then have, generally, a company come out. A company come out and they're going to evaluate it, a roofer, HVAC guy. They're going to go, hey, this actually has a cracked this, or hey, yeah, this roof needs replaced, or hey, all their shingles they put on upside down. They need a new roof, whatever it is, and they're going to give you an estimate. Well, then now you know exactly what to ask for, and then you can say, let's just do this. Let's say we're listing them. Items 3.1. I would always do this. All item numbers correspond to the inspection report. Item numbers, right? So I want them to know where I got these item numbers from. All right. And then I would go 1.4 roof And I might say repair according to attached and incorporated estimate by JCZ Residential. Okay? Boom. Now I'm pointing their eyes to the professional, and I'm providing them the estimate that talks about what shingle type, drip edge, Weiss water shield, all the stuff that you don't necessarily know about, but I'm pointing to that professional. I would do the same thing. 2.6 septic, and then I will, we've already got the bid by R&S, whatever it is. Okay, to be fair, they do sewers. So there we go. That's how we might handle that situation. All right. Anyway, there's a lot to this. The key is understanding definition of defect, helping your client whittle things down, asking for what you want, because the seller can't kill the deal just because you ask for something. They can say no, but they can't kill the deal. So don't be afraid to ask for what you want. Then we're going to come down to now the rules of engagement here. Seller shall respond on or before, and you pick a date. Do not add a time. Some agents will come in here and they'll type, 7/20/2022 by 6:00 p.m. That's absolutely asinine. Do not do that mess. That is so dumb. Just pick a date. Then you sign and all that stuff there. Now check it out. If seller fails to respond or fails to request in writing an extension of time to respond, seller accepts the buyer's inspection response above. So if they miss this deadline of this date to respond to us with a yes, a no, or a new idea, then they're going to take it the way we said it. Just like if we missed sending this in the appropriate amount of time, which is the 10 days plus the additional days if we needed them, from the purchase agreement we looked at, if we don't send this, then we take the house in its current condition. If we send this and then they miss their date, then they accept our response above. All right? Seller's going to reply. They're going to either accept it, they're going to see seller inspection response 1 because they're going to do their first response, or seller rejects the above, see attached mutual release from purchase agreement. This is a stupid line. The reason it's here is because the as is. Some people were wrongly using this form in the as is scenario. Let me tell you why this form is not a good form, is not a legitimate form for as is. As is, you reserve the right to inspect and terminate. This is a negotiation document. It also creates a deadline for a seller to respond or this happens. Okay? You did not reserve the right to place the onus on the seller to have to make a decision like that. You can't put in here that, hey, seller, it's now in your court and you have 3 days to respond. No, you reserve the right to terminate as a buyer during the as is. You did not reserve the right to negotiate and give the seller a deadline. Doesn't happen. So that's why they did this, but they need a rejection, sort of thing. And I'll show you why it still kind of works, but I just don't love that. But that's what that's for, is when somebody sends this document during as is, you click that button. If the seller is just not going to do anything, then they can go to see seller inspection response number 1. Okay. And I'm going to show you that form. Seller. Notice I didn't search for a lot of stuff. I just kind of started inspection response A. Here's their response. And we'll jump over to them right now. Seller inspection response, we put 1 up here in this case. The date will fill in. Property address will already be there. Seller agrees to correct the following conditions prior to closing. This is the whole of what they're correcting. So do not be confused, buyer's agents. When a seller comes back and you said you wanted A, B, and C. So let's say, for instance, I'm just giving an example. The buyer's response said, let's see. Buyer's response said, fix mold in attic. So we don't need the word fix. Mold in attic. They said $1,000. Mold in attic. Water leak under. I'm just writing this here like this is what the buyer wrote, and now we're going to address water leak in, under kitchen sink, and in lieu of any other repairs, seller to contribute $2,000 towards any of buyer's lender allowed purchasing. All right, this is technically hyphenated, I believe. Okay, so those are the 3 things that they asked for. Now, they weren't written on our document here. They're written on that buyer's response that we just did. But I just wanted to write it here so we could remember it. So then the seller looks at those items, comes back, and this happened to me. We did this to someone, and the agent didn't know what was going on. I'm going to explain it. So then the seller looks at it and writes on this paper here that we're looking at, writes this. He sends this back. Seller agrees to correct the following conditions prior to closing. Seller to contribute $1,500. So they didn't say anything about the other 2 items, the mold and the leak. They just did this and changed the number. So the listing agent and their client look at this form that we, it would have been the buyer's agent and their client looked at the form the seller, me, and my seller sent back like this. And they said, okay, we can live with that. They're only going to give us $1,500 instead of $2,000. And then they moved on. They signed it as accepted down here, right? Buyer accepts that. The mistake that you're going to make if you're not paying attention right now is that you're going to think that I'm doing the leak, I'm doing the mold, and I'm giving you $1,500. That is not what this document says. This document says seller agrees to do these things, give you $1,500. I don't have to say, not doing the leak. Right? I don't have to say that. It's terrible salesmanship anyway. What I'm doing is I'm hoping they're going to forget about the leak in the mold and just be happy I'm giving them $1,500. So when you're coming back, when the seller's coming back, they are giving you the entire list of what they are doing. So do not be tricked. In this case, there is no leak being fixed. There is no mold being fixed. And they are only giving you $1,500. That is all that's happening. If your client's okay with that, then great. If your client's like, well, what about the mold and the leak? You're going to say, they're not doing it. At least not yet. Currently, all they're willing to do is give you $1,500 and walk away. Okay? This is not bringing from the old and then changing. This is literally deleting everything the buyer said and writing in what the seller is going to do. Okay? This is the full list. What you see here is the full list. Now, let's say the seller wanted or was willing to do the leak. He might write something like this. All items on BIR1 are accepted with except seller to contribute only $1,500 to, now he said all the items that the buyer said are fine, except this is going to happen instead of the other one. Instead of 2,000, it's going to be 1,500, right? Or he could list them back out, right? Mold, leak, and seller to contribute only $1,500. So now we're going to fix the mold, we're going to fix the leak, and we're going to give you $1,500. But if it looks like this, then that's all they're doing. Okay? I'm not messing around. This happens. New agents get whacked. Because the juxtaposition is a counteroffer. A counteroffer or an amendment or an addendum only changes that which it mentions. This document deletes everything before in the inspection response world and says exactly and only what the seller is going to do. Okay? That's that one. Now, if this, we talked about, the rejection feature of these, that the one said he rejected and here's a mutual release. Well, that's possible. You could do that, especially if they try to negotiate on as is. But in most cases, if you're rejecting it, I'm using air quotes with my fingers that you can't see, then you're going to do a seller response and click this box. That seller is unable or unwilling to make the corrections requested by buyer and send it back. That's it. That's the way you reject it as a seller. As a buyer, that's how you'll get it back in theory, as it's not going to be a mutual release because they can't kill the deal on an inspection response if you reserve the right to ask for repairs. They're just going to say no. And they say no. Then you can say, okay, well, we'll take no for an answer, buy the house. Or you come down here and you see buyer inspection number 2 and you go make another inspection response and you change it, right? Buyer rejects seller's inspection response and you see the mutual release. That's fine. If you truly had defects that you asked for repaired and they said no, or they said no, but we'll give you money and your people don't really want money or don't want the house anymore, then you can reject it, attach a mutual release, deal's done. Okay? These addendums, again, there's not going to be much involved here. You're going to normally mention stuff up here, but if there is an exhibit or something to look at, you can either write it in these lines or you can say addendum, number exhibit A, which might show something, or you could do a estimate by JCZ, or you figure out any way to direct the attention to it. But there are addendums to this that you can add manually if you're going to have a really long one, and then you're going to have them numbered and stuff like that. But not attached is attached. Okay. If a reply is required, remember back on the other document, the middle box over here. So this is all the same, right? If buyer fails to reply to this or request an extension, then they're going to accept this the way it is. So it's the same. So let me go back to my form here, which is the buyer's inspection response. Remember here, I said if this on the seller one, just context here, if a reply is required, okay, back up. Buyer inspection response. No seller's response is required. So we don't need the seller to respond back to us. They can just accept this buyer's response above. Matter of fact, I think they can just take the document, right? But there's no seller response at all. Like, not the big R response, like as in buyer's response, capitalized, talking about the document. It's lowercase response, so it's just language, no seller response. So the seller does not need to respond to us if we click this. So, that's why these things all bleed together and you have to pay so much attention. It's actually hard to even get through them all. But that's the buyer's inspection response. Don't get caught up in some of the things we talked about where you're trying to play contractor. Fill these out the right way. Use Housemaster. Use the tool to create a repair request list and then make it really easy on yourself. All items on attached and incorporated repair request list by Housemaster, and then have your people sign this. Have your people sign the repair request list PDF. Send it on over. So easy. And then I've even responded back as a listing side. I've responded back to that repair list with a seller will complete all items on repair request list that are circled in red. And so all we've done is gone to the repair request list, circled the 4 items in red that we're going to handle, and then boom, we're communicating in pictures and professional words that way rather than confusing stuff. It's just so much better. But that's the buyer inspection response and seller inspection response documents. They are convoluted. If you're confused, go back and watch the video again. But that's how you use these documents. This is the most taxing part of the transaction as the market ebbs and flows. Right now, or in the last few years, we've had a really hot seller's market. Well, that means there's been a lot less of this. It's been low stress for both parties, really, because buyers know they're not going to get much, if anything, and sellers know they're not going to get asked for much, and they hold this major power that, you know what, we're not doing any of that. So either buy the house or we'll just sell it to the next 47 people, right? As the market will shift, buyers are going to become much more picky, and they're going to be able to ask for stuff because the seller's been on the market for 30 days, finally got an offer, and they don't want to lose it, so they're going to be more willing to do things. So there's going to be a lot more negotiations going on in a different market than we're currently in. So you'll get used to this in different markets, and it'll all feel totally different. But anyway, that's that form. I know that's a long one, but this is the most emotionally stressful time. This is, you got to be very careful. You've got deadlines here. There's just a lot going on in this form that you've got to remember. And remember, whatever you ask for here, they can say, yes, no, or here's a new idea, right? And they're going to create a whole new list for you. But anyway, lots to talk about. I could talk forever on it. I'm going to kill the video, and we'll come back with the next document.